Hey, 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 Ty Salvant of NOLA Homeschoolers. Welcome to the classroom.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's good to have you. These conversations are helping a lot of people. So once again, I want to honor your dedication to getting this information out and making sure that those that need it have access to it. It's a big deal, pretty big deal.
Thank you. And I appreciate the platform and the forum to be able to do this because there are so many uncertainties in the world right now, right? That if we can just ease a little bit of anxiety that parents are going through right now, I mean, it'll I think make a world of difference for them, for their kids, and for
Mhm.
how they move forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anxiety, and I don't want us to take that for granted. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Is even as an educator, and you as an educator as well, a parent educator, I am finding more and more the closer we get to schools opening and the fall coming in, and I'm finding that more and more parents are just anxious. They don't know what to do. They don't know what decisions to make. They're just not sure. These are some heavy times, and we're making heavy, weighty decisions about our kids and their health, as well as trying to do what's best for them academically. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation today. Our focus is going to be on homeschooling and supporting virtual schooling for middle schoolers. For middle schoolers, junior high. So we're looking at about the seventh, eighth grade. Anyone who has not seen our classroom conversations of late, the past ones, we have talked about everyone from the babies, the little ones, all the way through elementary and late elementary. And now we are having the discussion about middle schoolers. So in the past, we've talked about scheduling, the importance of scheduling. We've talked about the importance of structure. We've talked about the importance of consistency and awareness, just making sure that we as parents are aware of what's going on with our kids. So if you missed any of that, go back and check out the videos that we've done, the classroom conversations we've done in the past. Today, we're going to focus on middle schoolers, and this is a special group, right? Any educator usually says, ooh, you got to be super special to work with the middle schoolers because they're not quite kids, the babies, but they are
Mm-hmm.
definitely not mature enough yet to be left alone, right? High schoolers. So this is that pivotal age. So as we go into this conversation, what would you say is one of the most important things to remember as we go into the school year educating middle schoolers?
When you said that, the first thing I thought about was this too shall pass, right? Think about, I mean, this is prepubescent, hormonal, so they're going from our sweet little babies and maybe more compliant to a little bit more attitude. Some, they think they can do a lot more than what they can. They really struggle with responsibility, but they don't want to be reminded of what to do.
Oh, they are complex. They are complex creatures. They are complex.
Yes. Yes. So I think that when we are looking at middle schoolers, I think it is extremely wise to end up creating helping them to develop those executive function skills in a way that feels more grown up to them, right? So we've taken down like the little charts with brush your teeth, comb your hair, you know, we are putting up maybe a quick little checklist that they can do to establish a good morning routine, right? Sometimes, I'm just saying a lot of times, right now you have to be very specific with the personal hygiene, right? So
I was trying not to laugh, Ty, but
I'm just saying, right? But
absolutely.
right. And so all of these things are a part of because remember, so it's not just academics, right? So these are those life skills that we really need to make sure that we are working on it with our kids and doing it in a way that's not embarrassing to them, doing it in a way that still helps them to maintain some sort of control, right? And so, you know, like right now, basically like their circle is expanding with the choices that they can make. So we need to just make sure that we're like, okay, so here are all of your choices. Before these were your choices. Now here are your choices. Stay within here and we're good, right? And so letting them decide what time they want to do their math class at this point is a way to give them some autonomy, is a way to allow them to feel like they are making some of these decisions. We also have to allow them to fail. But we have to allow them to fail, to see what it looks like, to figure out how to make it right. Because if you don't, and you don't know how to make amends, you don't know how to pick up the pieces, you don't know how to put it back together again, right? So this is a really safe space and safe time for them to, you know, stay up too late reading that book and not do as well on that test, right? Because, you know, if you're in a traditional school, those grades are not carrying over to high school. So you're going to get to start over. So this is the time where you want to make that mistake and realize how, honestly, an F on one test can bring your A down to a B for the year, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think you definitely bring up some good points. Is this also, and we can dig deeper into what you said, but is this also the age, you talk about hygiene, where they are so complex and confused, like they don't really know yet to be mature, how to be independent, and this is just overall, but they also they want that responsibility. So all of this also plays into their self-esteem, right?
mm-hmm.
So their
Yes.
so giving them choices, giving them options, helping them to stay within the bounds that you've set. Hey, this is our circle where, you know, this is where you're going to make some decisions. You can decide when you want to do this class, and, you know, that kind of thing. This is that time when those boundaries can help to reinforce positive self-images, positive self-esteem, whereas parents, we can support them in the decisions that they're making and help them to learn to make better decisions as they go on. In this period, this time period where they are, many of them, you know, some kids are going back into the brick and mortars, and some kids, many of them are still going to be homeschooled by their families, and they were already doing that. The support that they need academically, let's start there. The support that they need academically, what does that look like?
So I would say for middle schoolers, honestly, at this point, your kids should be strong and fluent readers. If they are not, work on it. Get a reading specialist, do whatever you can to improve fluency and comprehension and reading speed. That's another thing, right? Take a speed reading class. Do that in middle school, because that is going to prepare them for high school and the amount of reading they are going to be expected to do in high school. So this is a time when you should be really solidifying everything you learned from kindergarten through, you know, 8th grade, right?
Can we pause there and take a deep dive into what a good reader, right? What a good reader looks like. If I am a parent and I think, you know, my child should be, you know, my child is 7th grade, so of course he's on reading level, right? So what does that look like in a practical sense for parents who are not sure, maybe if their child is a fluent good reader?
So honestly, what I recommend is for you to end up doing a couple of tests with your kids, right? There's some really great, just like free, quick tests that your kids can do where they read a passage and answer some questions after it. It tests their reading speed, the fluency, and the comprehension. You want to have your child read some things out loud to you, because what I have found is, again, I had really early readers for the most part. And kids who in some ways taught themselves a lot of things, but then when they would read, and I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, and they would pronounce something, and I was like, oh, no, oh, no, but no, you cannot go out there saying that way, right? Because I know how smart you are, but, right? So have your child read out loud to you. It's easier to do that if you read out loud to them, right? So whether you're having read alouds for a half an hour before, after dinner, and everybody's taking a turn reading something in a book. Everybody could be reading a different book and just read a page to each other to kind of share what it is that they're reading right now. Right. So again, when they're reading, it should sound like it is when we're having a conversation. It should be fluid. It should flow. The word should be pronounced the right way. If you struggle a lot, right? If it takes a long time to get through a sentence, there is something there that needs addressing.
Absolutely. And even the comprehension piece. Talk about that. Go.
Yes. So with the comprehension piece, it should be not only are they being able to read fluently, but they should understand what it is that they're reading. So we're going beyond just what color was her dress again? It was yellow. To what didn't they say? What did they imply in this? Right. So we're starting to read between the lines and understand and put these things into context at this point with our middle schoolers. So they should be working on all of those really at this point.
Awesome. Go ahead.
With math, right? So math, same thing. At this point, like, we shouldn't be guessing. So if I said was 6 times 6, you should not be like 36.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That took too long. Right. So, so I'm just going to say, I know that there are people who aren't supporters of memorizing your multiplication facts. I am a huge fan of that. I'm sorry. When you get to algebra and you are doing problems and you see that you have this equation you're solving and you have 225 and it's 15 because you're going to divide by, it's the square root. So like, you just need to know that. You don't need to have to figure that out. Absolutely. So there are also times, tails, there are great things online to help you memorize those facts. And people will say, oh, but my child can't memorize. Okay. So I will say, clearly there are kids with, dyscalculia that have more issues with math. I do not want to take away from that at all whatsoever. But you show me a child who is interested, specifically a boy who is interested in sports, I will show you a boy who can memorize some stats on this player and what college he went to and his best play and his all-time game and when he had this injury, right?
Absolutely.
We can memorize some stuff.
Yes. And even using music. That's one way, is using
Absolutely.
music. When it comes to memorization, I'm also a huge fan of memorizing certain things. I don't think that our whole academic experience should be rote memorization, but I think that there are some key things like times tables that need to be memorized, because if you're working with, and we're going to talk about high school, we get to high school and I'm working with kids in consumer math, and we're working on algebra 1 and we're working on algebra 2. And if they have not gotten a good foundation, then we've added 2 or 3 steps to one problem, which could add 5 minutes to each problem. So
exactly,
it pays to memorize some of those basic math facts. You touched on it just a little bit. Let's segue into testing. What kinds of things should our parents be doing with our middle schoolers, our junior high, 7th, 8th grade, as it relates to testing right now?
Right. So, okay, just as homeschoolers in the state of Louisiana, you do not have to test. You do not have to test your kids. And people will say, oh, that's not fair. Or, oh, how do you know that they're learning this information? To which I always go back to, I have a different motivation than a teacher does with my kid. I'm just saying he lives in my house and he can't live here forever. So it does me no good to pass you when you can't read, because that's going to come back on me, right? So I'm just saying we're making sure that they get through the material.
Yeah.
But with testing, guys, here's the thing. I am not somebody who is also against testing. Testing is a good thing. Our kids need to know how to test, right? And they need to know how to test under pressure, because there are certain tests that they will take, whether it's a time test, and that it will be under pressure, and they need to know how to do this. And so it is our job, again, as the educator, to make sure that our kids are prepared for that. So I remember when my boys were 11 and 12, I had them take a practice ACT and SAT for the first time. And we did it for a couple of reasons. One, I was curious as to where they would be. I knew the level of math we were working on, and again, I wanted to see. Two, I wanted them to start to get used to taking that test. It's the same format. The directions are the same. The passages are in the same order. It's the same thing. So the more you are exposed to it, the less time it's going to take you to get through the formalities to actually take the test, right? So we need to just, again, take some of this fear and anxiety out of testing with our kids. And I didn't tell my kids that, oh, guess what? In a month, we're going to take a test. In 2 weeks, we're taking a test. In 2 days, we're taking a test. No, I was like, oh, hey, you know what? This day we're going to go here and we're going to do this thing. Bring your calculator.
That's it.
That was because I was testing the information that they knew. I knew it.
We've already done it. We've already done it. We're already working on it. There's no need for me to get you all worked up. It's just a matter of getting in there, get the information, have the experience, right? Which is what I hear you saying. Give them the opportunity to experience it. And that way they're not surprised and filled with anxiety when reality hits and things change. Maybe they end up going into a traditional school versus homeschool. Maybe they end up working to get into college, or even taking the ASVAB for the military, those things. So if we begin to give them those experiences early on, then it takes the power out of the anxiety that they would normally feel.
Absolutely. And testing fatigue is real. Right? That ACT is a 3.5-hour test. So even though if you could take each part individually, right, you at the top of your game, by the time that you get to hour 2.5, your little brain is tired. So you need to end up learning how to pace yourself, right? And learning how to work through being tired mentally when you're taking that test.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about providing that exposure, exposing them to the possibilities of what testing brings. So they should be potentially at this time for parents who want to kind of give their kids that holistic experience. They should be at least kind of taking those practice exams like the ACT, SAT, and they can definitely find that. Can they find that information on on NOLA Homeschoolers, or you would point them in the direction? Awesome. Yes. So if you want more information about the testing and you don't make it to the end of this video for now, you're going to come back and watch the rest of it, then head to NOLA Homeschoolers, because we're talking to Salvant of NOLA Homeschoolers, and she's an expert at getting parents on the right page and bringing families together, actually, as it relates to homeschooling and taking care of our first priority, which is teaching our own children, right? So as we wrap up this conversation, I want to jump into, we're talking about middle schoolers, we're talking about the homeschool experience and supporting this virtual schooling that's going to happen as we're in the throe of going into, of course, the pandemic. But as we take many of our kids out of the brick and mortar, at least for a time, how can we support them as it relates to extracurricular activities? What should that look like, and what decisions should parents be making right now?
So I think this is a great time to expose them to as many activities that they are interested in, right? And honestly, as parents, you need to throw out some things that they don't know that they're interested in, because they won't know until they try it for some things. And unfortunately, sometimes even that trying takes a season, right? So I know that we play academic games, which I love. I am sold on academic games and all of the benefits that it has. But the first year that you play, it is hard because there's a huge learning curve and there's so much information coming at you, and you're going to these competitions and you're testing against these kids who may have been doing it for 2 or 3 years already. And so it can be overwhelming. And so I tell parents all the time, I said, honestly, if you really want to try this, you need more than a year. You need to commit for the year and then come back for the first games for the next year, because you won't get a chance to play that game again until the following year. And that's when you'll know if this could be for you, right? So, and that's like with any sport, right? I mean, some kids take to it very easily and they absolutely love it, right? Other kids, they have to get good at it first, right? Before they have it. So sometimes we need to push and say, okay, so we're going to try this for a semester. We're going to try this for a year. We're going to try this for, give them some time and really work on, we hadn't talked about this yet, but that concept of fixed versus growth mindset, right? So we need to make sure that we're saying, but the first time you tried anything, baby, you didn't do it. The first time you tried to walk, you fell, right? Took 10,000 tries before you made it, right? So let's look at these other things the same way. Let's put some time in before you say, no, this is not for me, or I don't want to do this. Now, clearly there are some easy ones. I mean, if you're really not, into sports or into team sports, then don't force them to do that. They can certainly end up finding an individual sport or finding some other way that they can end up loving and embracing doing something healthy for their bodies, right? So it really is, letting your kid know, especially at this age, that some of the things that we are doing today are really for you 5-10 years from now. So you playing tennis today can help you stay healthy 10 years from now, right? Yeah. So this is the time that we want to start just exploring all sorts of extracurricular activities, whether it's virtual or in person, to help them find what they're interested in. You never know what's going to spark that interest, right?
Absolutely.
Like, teacher, I saw this speaker, I went to this concert, I read this book. You never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah. Once again, it's exposure, giving them the opportunity to see different points of view, to see different activities, and helping them to develop the mindset that just because you didn't do well maybe this season doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it a try next season or the next school year as it relates to things like academic games. There's also the barrier, or there's the, I don't know if I even want to call it a barrier, maybe a speed bump in the road called this pandemic, when a lot of things have gone virtual, right? Yeah. A lot of things have gone virtual. Some schools are actually canceling their sports. I know even in Major League Baseball, they've started, and this is one of the sports where they don't have to have a whole lot of one-to-one contact, but they are finding that people are testing positive. So sports is kind of a challenge right now. But remember, getting the kids, I think the key is getting the kids from in front of the television and from in front of the computer, the iPads, the cell phones, and saying, let us figure out, even if it means connecting them with a coach in a one-on-one setting, where a batting coach or a dance teacher, or in a one-on-one setting where they are abiding by the wearing their masks and social distancing and things of that nature, washing hands. And so it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be team sports necessarily, or it doesn't have to be sports at all, but it could definitely still be done. And I think that's the key. is that this is our new norm, at least for a little while, where we are not going to be able to do things the way we used to do them. And it's gonna be up to our parents, with our support, educators and community members. It's going to be up to our parents to make sure that they are providing those opportunities for their kids to get that exposure and find out what their interests are. Because you mentioned this earlier, this too shall pass. This pandemic is going to pass. And on the other side of it, what do you want your kid to have experienced, right? What do you want your son, your daughter to have experienced on the other side of this? And if you kind of fast forward to when this has passed, it'll help you to make some healthy decisions now. So as we wrap up this conversation, Ty, on middle schoolers, homeschooling them, supporting the virtual classroom, what would you say to the parent of a middle schooler who is just still maybe has some anxiety, maybe is just still not sure that this is something that dad or mom is able and capable of undertaking?
So when I talk to families about homeschooling, I tell them to write out a list of all of the apprehensions. Give me every single one that you have, and let's find solutions to those. So if your apprehension is that you don't feel educated enough, well, then we can find somebody who's more educated than you to teach that subject, right? If you are not organized enough, then we can find the support structure that you need to help provide that for you. If you feel like you are too structured or your expectations are too high and it's too demanding, then I would say that, so then we have a realistic expectation of what they should know. And you at the very top of your list, put on there to focus on your relationship, right? Focus on developing that relationship while teaching these things, and really build in some things that you can do together. So whether it's you go camping or you go take a trip out to the mountains, or you go do something that you wouldn't ordinarily have an opportunity to do if they were in a traditional school right now, right? Like, again, going back to what do you want them to remember, really create some memories during this time, so that when they do think back on this time, yes, it was challenging, but, and how do you want them to fill in that blank, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just speaking of that, it's like, it really is important the way that you, as mom or dad or grandma or aunt or uncle, whoever it is who's in this child's life, it is really important the words that you say, the what you express about how the schools are handling this decision. We've talked about this a lot. This is not easy. There are so many moving parts, and everybody wants to make the right and best and safest decision. Honestly, there are businesses. People are also concerned about, so what happens if you come and you say that you got COVID when you were at school with me? Yes. Right? There's the legality of it. People, like administrators, are making really tough calls right now. So nobody's taking this lightly. This isn't personal. No one's saying, Ari, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to help you with no, it's not. It is, we are all trying to make the best decisions in a difficult time with the information that we have. And I think if we all keep that in mind, and really try and look for the positives that we can in this, that it'll go a long way for helping us to get through this.
I love it. I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Ty, for joining me for this classroom conversation in the Teach Your Own Kid classroom. Where can the people find you?
NOLA Homeschoolers.com. So you can visit our website. There's lots of information on getting started, online resources. It's just chock full of great stuff. We also have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. It's a private group, so you do have to request to join that. If you do, just please answer the 3 questions so I can approve you. So there's a Facebook group where we more communicate and share information, and a Facebook page where we just kind of push out information to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Ty.
You're welcome.